What is up, friends? YouTube motorcycle enthusiasts, Accelerate coming at you with my review of the 2015 Yamaha YZ250FX. Stick around, see what we get into. Alright guys, so I've had the YZ250FX for just over a season and a half now. So this has been my backup bike slash my go-to whenever my Beta 300RR has been either getting worked on or not, just, you know, there to get a 4-stroke in my life. And it's fuel injected, obviously, as many of the new 4-stroke bikes are. So just a little bit about the bike real quick. As many of you know, the FX was designed by Yamaha, the first ones, by the way, to step into the world of GNCC specific built bikes. So hair scramble style bike, type racing. So it's basically a 250F with some mods. The FX has been around. This is the first year. This is a 15, so it's been around now. Since then, some changes with the went along with the F. So mine has some basic mods. I'm going to go over them real quick. That way we can talk about it as I move forward to the review. So real quick, your standard stuff: Cycloprobin, hand guards. I did end up adding this stunt clutch lever, and I have to say it's an Amazon $30 guy. I have considered getting the quality American made ones. If I end up liking this one and I keep the Yamaha, I will end up buying a legitimate non-knockoff stunt lever. But I wanted to try it out. I didn't want to drop the money on it right away, so I wanted to try it out, and I gotta say, I absolutely love it. So I look forward to getting, I can't remember the name of the company. I want to say it's ARC, or I can't remember, but they're out there. They make them for pretty much every cable clutch bike, racing bike anyway. So really great. I really enjoyed this. Next we have the Baja Designs LED light. So this was not done by me. This was done by my friend Charles. This is the Squadron Sport. So I did end up wiring up a switch over here on the handlebars. The switch here was used, and then I did some wiring stuff. But this headlight's fantastic. This is legitimate functional headlight, guys. So unlike a lot of enduro bikes that have maybe something that might be able to get you back if you get out in the if you get stuck out in the brush or whatever, that light will actually project light. It's extremely bright. So other than that, we have some radiator guards, braces and guards. Those were in my original reveal as well. And I've done some other basic stuff. Cycra skid plate. You know, I love the Polysport swing arm covers just to keep things nice. I ended up needing to get the Acerbis chain block at the bottom, simply because the original one has a metal frame, and those metal frames can get tweaked, and then it's really hard to get them bent back. So an all polymer chain block, I think, is the way to go. That's the way most enduro bikes set them up as well. So little rear grip for the seat, and then stainless steel brake line up front for you guys. In 15, they did not have a stainless steel line up front. It was rubber. It was your standard rubber. And that's pretty much it for the body of the bike. So for tire and wheel setup, factory sprockets, factory wheels, factory chain. I have a Washougal 2, Kenda Washougal 2 on the front. That's brand new as of just like about a week ago. And then I have a Kenda Ibex on the back, which was, I won a sweepstakes with Barnstormers Off-Road So, you know, previous customers get enter into a sweepstakes. I ended up winning an 18-inch rear, 110. So, man, perfect fit. The AT81s on here were getting really tired, so you know, it was perfect time. And also, finally, I have tubeless on both front and rear. So I run out in here in this type of terrain. It's not, I'm in mostly eastern North Carolina, hare scramble flat, woody type area. I just run 8 front, 8 rear. So little higher speed stuff. I don't get into the rocks and stuff where I'm at right now. So that's pretty much the bike setup. So let's go for a ride. Let's talk about what I think about this bike, what I don't like about the bike, and we can go from there. So let's see. Yeah, I'll take the same loop I just took. So as many of you guys know, I am a relatively new rider, and I've been saying this for a while because I just started riding. This is my 3rd season coming up, so as an adult, and so that's where I'm coming from that perspective. You guys been following my channel, you know I mentioned that quite a bit, that I am not an experienced rider or racer. So the YZ250FX to me is probably the woods bike to buy if you want a 4-stroke. Now I haven't ridden a Sherco SEF 300. I think it's an either way, the 300 4-stroke. I haven't ridden one of those, and obviously there's a lot of bikes I haven't ridden. So my buddy has the RX, the CRF 250 RX. I putted around on that just a little bit, and you know, as Yamaha stepped into the game, as I mentioned before, of getting into purpose-built GNCC race bikes, it took a little while, but the other manufacturers finally followed suit. And I'll tell you, the Yamaha's, it's pretty amazing. So let's start with, as I try to do anyway with my reviews, let's start with a top-down approach. So the first thing let's talk about is the chassis. So the chassis on this bike is really good. Again, it's a 15, and I know that they have since changed, and from what I've read, only gotten better. So if you're looking to save some money with a couple-year-old bike, then this bike makes a lot of sense. And it's still extremely good, and I would argue to say for an amateur, if you were wanting to do some racing, definitely competitive. The chassis is very stiff. This thing is planning, and you know, riding my 300 also, it's such a different animal. This bike likes to go fast, relative term for me, as you guys know. It likes speed, and it's a planted bike. The chassis is extremely rigid, and I can feel it as I start to get faster in a lot of the tighter stuff, moving into the open stuff. So the weight with the chassis, I think this thing weighs in at around 255 pounds. So the days, as you guys know, the days of 4-strokes being, you know, heavy compared to their ultralight 2-stroke brethren, those days are kind of over. You know, technology's kind of stepped up. Yamaha has made the components of this bike relatively light. It does have a little bit more going on because it's a 4-stroke, of course. So because of that, I mean, it's not going to feel too stroke light. The chassis is very rigid. It's a very flickable bike. It does not feel heavy in my hands. It feels nimble, and I can change directions with the front end and with my weight very easy. So very, very good. I like the chassis of this bike. So along with the chassis, let's talk about the suspension. Now, I'm not going to say anything about the Triple S KYB forks that the internet and most of you that even are considering looking at this bike don't know. So from a novice perspective, this suspension is fantastic. Now, this suspension, and I should have mentioned this in the first portion as I was going over the bike, is completely stock. Stock springs, stock valving. The only thing I have done is, the only thing I have done is change the oil. Maintenance, right? Clean the seals, change the oil. So, what do I think about the suspension? Oh, it's good. The beauty of this is, not only is it good, but it's also very well known and extremely tunable. So, a lot of your local type shops will know these forks. You know, as we know, just like heart surgeons, suspension professionals, there's different levels, just like car builders. There's your local guys that can set you up, and then there's like tippy top of the tier for racing, right? So the good thing is whenever you have something as prolific as the SSS suspension by KYB, is that it's just like LS engines. Your local builder can probably set you up really good because everybody's been doing it for a while. The information's out there. He's learned, everybody's learned. So, good stuff. Now, as for clickers and adjustability, I play with the settings some, but what I've done so far, I like. Here's neutral. This bike is massively undersprung for me. Historically, I've been about 225 pounds, or 215 to 225. So I have recently cut weight, and I'm right at around 200, 205. Then I'll probably continue to cut about another 10 pounds. So massively undersprung. So I don't know how much I'm giving up at my level for it to be sprung and valved. Probably, I would say, probably a little bit. I'm not fast, but I'm slowly speeding up to where, you know, it's going to start mattering. As everybody knows, springing a bike for your weight is like one of the first things you need to do. And I just didn't do it because I was extremely slow. So mixed up in these trees really easy. It's all just tight track that goes around and around. So onto the suspension, or back to the suspension. This suspension, for my weight, for what I do, is very good. Can it be better? Oh, you bet you. next, one last thing I want to talk about with the suspension. So, as many of you know, I bought this bike off of Charles from Barnstormers Off-Road. Great deal, great guy. The bike was so mint whenever I got it. It's been a fantastic deal. Very pleased. So Charles is like 6, don't misquote me, I want to say 6'5", he might be 6'4", and about, I'm going backwards, there's no one else around here, but I really don't want to go backwards. So 6'4", 6'5", and about 245 pounds, 240. And everybody in our middle age, we of course move around a little bit, you know. So he rode this thing and is fast, like impressive. And so again, the suspension's massively undersprung for him, even more so than me. So you know, 80-20 on all that jazz. So yeah, it's just a testament to how good the suspension really does on these bikes, and frankly why SSS suspension is like the LS swap of the dirt bike world, you know, for all kinds of bikes. And recently, as you guys know, manufacturers, a lot of the enduro manufacturers have moved to KYB forks, including Beta for their race edition. So that is worth taking into account. Alright, so next let's talk about the motor. 250cc, fuel injected. You know, I mentioned before in my quick review, way back whenever, or my really initial impressions, before I even owned the bike, when Charles let me ride it. This thing's angry, and this thing has a ton of low and grunt. It's really impressive, and I think it really shows. I think it really shows where four-stroke technology and dirt bike technology has gone. It's so good. I mean, these 250s now have so much grunt. I ended up in the same spot. The sand. I don't really know where to go. Oh yeah, this takes me back to the truck. In any case, the motor on this thing, now I'm insane, guys, and I got an Ibex on the rear, and the Washougal does good. You know, people talk about how good this thing is up top, and I never really knew, because you may not be able to hear me because of wind noise. People talk about how good this thing is in at speed, or in the top end, revving it out, and I never really knew, because I never ran it out. I've historically not been able to. Let me see what this trail looks like. Oh, this looks cool. I've historically not been able to go faster, right? And I haven't felt comfortable revving the bike. So this thing's got bite, guys. Fantastic torque, fantastic bottom end. This motor and the newer ones, from what I've read, are even better. They're even better. This thing, and you guys may not notice, and I'm probably not doing it as much now, but I can lift the wheel, the front wheel on demand. Oh, Swamp City! Over these roots. And it just blows my mind that this thing just has that grunt. It's so good. Another thing that I really like about this motor, other than the sheer grunt, is the oil change intervals. If you look at the manual, in race conditions, 28 hours. Change the oil every 28 hours per the manual. Now, I couldn't believe it. Vegas Romaniacs did a video on that same thing. As many of you know, he has a YZ250FX. So, very consumer friendly. I have never been back in here. This is awesome. Yeah, Swamp Pond. But this motor really is super good. Now, one feature I will highlight with the FX, I don't know if they've done it with the newer ones, is the idle. So there is an idle switch here on the clutch, the OEM clutch anyway. So when you pull the clutch in, it actually raises the idle. The reason why is they want to reduce that engine braking that you get from 4 strokes, because in technical situations the engine braking can become a hindrance. It's kind of less predictable than what a pro level racer could do with the modulation of their front and rear brake. So that is removed with this clutch, stunt clutch, you know, bracket or perch. You know, I don't notice a difference, guys. I'm not good enough to know either way. So it's worth noting though that Yamaha started to take everything into account whenever they were developing this bike. So the motor on this thing is fantastic. Anybody that says they need a 450 for the woods, they're top level guys. They're going to be, I mean, it's all preference, right? Everybody teach their own, but there is no way I need more power than what this bike has to offer. It has so much grunt for me down low at 200 pounds, and then top end it just zings. I mean, the power just surges and comes on. Very strong motor. You know, the FX also gets the 6-speed wide ratio transmission. So that's part of why we have problems finding clutch covers, protectors like the Polysport or a Turbus protectors on those sides, because it's unique to the FX because they had to, it's wider than the F. So heads up on that. I kind of ran into that. At the end of the day, I mean, you can buy an aftermarket, but I like things that look pretty. That's kind of why I like covering that stuff up, and I can put my Motul Shine and Go on there and make everything nice. So, but yeah, that's what's up with the engine. If I were to keep this bike and almost stayed on it. If I were to keep this bike, alright, next guys, we've got some dislikes. What do I not like about this Yamaha? Well, I'm here to tell you, there isn't much. There isn't much that I don't like about this bike, simply because it's so freaking good. Dodging the mud. So, one of the the things I don't like about it, I would have to say, is how progressive, or lack thereof, the throttle is. A lot of people complained about this in the earlier models. I have since adapted from whenever I first started riding the bike, but I immediately knew what people were talking about. I guess I can't go that way. So it's right now. I mean, that throttle is right now. It bites, and it's not the, you know, like I said before, this thing has great power, but it's not that it has so much power that I can't control it. What it is it's hard to modulate in technical situations. But realistically, as many people know, this bike was not really built for technical situations. Whenever I say technical, I'm talking hard enduro type settings. So, you know, this is a GNCC race bike. This bike is built to have speed, and oh, there's even more of a track or trails. So it's not really going to affect that many people. I mean, realistically, you know, unless you're doing technical stuff. Now, if you're doing technical stuff, you got two options. You could get the GYTR tuner, which I do not have. The GYTR tuner is going to open up a lot of avenues of how you could get the bike to feel. As many of you know, the new bikes, the new YZ250F and FX, have the Bluetooth and app. You don't no longer have to spend $240 on an auxiliary Palm Pilot looking thing to tune your bike. So a lot of the complaints that people would have with that throttle get cleared up. So that's definitely something to think about. Whee! I mean, this thing just rips, guys. So much power up top. I gotta be real careful. Alright guys, I have transitioned in this little OHV park where I was doing some tight woods to their little motocross track they have here. And I really like this track because number one, there's not a lot of huge jumps, which I'm not really comfortable doing, but also it helps, it's sandy and loose, and it helps me work on my speed and feeling the bike underneath me. So I really like that. The engine on this thing, fantastic. Suspension, fantastic. Even with a noob like me, it takes a lot of pretty good hits. Pulling the wheel up, no problem. So impressive. This reminds me of probably what I should add to my, do I think the FX could be a good motocross bike, or do motocross with it. And as I said in my other video, absolutely, I definitely think the FX, for a dual purpose, you're not going to win any motocross races with it. But if you also love riding off-road, it's a testament to what I've been talking about, how good this thing is. So hard to let go. I don't know if I can get this thing up. So good. So good. So, chassis, engine, suspension on this bike, all very impressive. Just know, for you heavier guys, no matter the bike, you're going to have to valve it and spring it for what you want to do. And if you got a really good tech, he can get you in the middle to where you can still do your hair scrambles, your GNCC type racing, and you could probably still do some light motocross and have a good time. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about is who is this bike for? I think this bike really can be about for anyone, but all bikes, doesn't matter what bike you're talking about, it's built for a purpose. And as long as you understand that purpose, and you understand that there are constraints and you may have to work around some of those constraints, then I think you're already ahead of the game. This bike could be for anyone because it's extremely easy to ride and it's friendly, it's reliable. These bikes it's a Yamaha, folks, everybody knows that. I've had zero issues with this bike. Parts are very plentiful. You know, we're not talking about, I would say a gas or a Sherco, but they're definitely getting more prolific. Look at that, it just takes it. Fantastic machine, guys. As I alluded to, I'm considering selling the Yamaha, but I don't know if I can. This bike is so good. It really doesn't complain, and I've said that to Chuck Charles before from Barnstormers Off-Road. You know, this bike doesn't complain. It can ride technical stuff. It can ride fast stuff, flowy stuff. You can jump it to a degree. Man, so good. Alright guys, I give this bike 5 out of 5 stars. The 2015 YZ250FX, fantastic bike. I don't know how much better the new ones are. They probably got a little bit lighter, probably got a little bit more power, a little bit grunt, more technology, but you could pick up a 15 or a 16 FX for probably $5 grand, $4,500 depending on the hours. And I mean, that's a big discount. You're getting close to half of what a new bike would cost. So, man, I'll tell you guys, I have a ball on this bike. It's my steed. And I got some cool stuff coming up. I thank you guys for subscribing and liking. Comment below. What do you think? If you have a YZ250FX, or if you're considering getting one, used or new, tell me what you think. Tell me if you got questions, ask. I'll try to answer them as fast as I can. And yeah, I encourage you guys to go ride one. Go ride one. Awesome bike. Awesome bike. Alright guys, I'm gonna go take a breather. It's about 1 p.m. I'm gonna go take a breather, maybe get a little snack. So, you guys get out there. You guys get out there. Ride a dirt bike. Let's accelerate once again. Signing off.